Hi, I'm Pamela Bailey, and I'm the creator of the Antebellum Diaspora Project, where we're finding our families that were separated by slavery in the antebellum South, and we're telling the stories of our ancestors. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the top 3 questions that I get asked about taking the DNA test. So before we get started, I'm going to ask that if you like the video, please give it the thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for taking the time to stop by my channel. Number 3, are DNA tests reliable? And I'm going to say a resounding yes. Now I'm going to date myself when I share this, but back in the 90s, there were a proliferation of television shows where people would go onto these TV shows to find out if they had fathered children. You know what shows I'm talking about. Yes, you are the father. Those shows. Well, the testing companies that they used to find out the results were using something called autosomal DNA tests, and is exactly what these online DNA testing sites are using as well. You know, if a father or a mother wanted to take a DNA test, this is the kind of test that they would use to tell or to determine if they were the parents of a child. And so the test is absolutely reliable. Now, it's really important to say that, because sometimes people have contacted me and they've said, I've taken a DNA test and my mother, my siblings, my grandmother, someone has said, you can't believe that test. You know, those people don't know what they're talking about. Well, they absolutely do, because it's science, and the science doesn't have a reason to lie. They don't have a narrative. Again, it's just information that they're able to find out using genetic coding. And so there's no reason for the test results to not be true. So I always say, you know, you have to believe the test above what people tell you. The test results are going to be, in most cases, absolutely correct. Now, I will tell you, I've taken DNA tests, and I've actually uploaded my raw data from one DNA test to another that's completely separate or different from the first testing site, and the results are almost always exactly the same. So again, you can trust the DNA results, and you can believe what you learn in the DNA testing. Question number 2 that I get asked very often is, can you tell me who my parents are or who my parent is? Now, I get asked this question a lot. I've been doing this for a few years now, and I can say that there have been at least a dozen instances where people have reached out to me to find out how we are related, and usually more specifically if I can tell them who their father is. In most cases, these are cousins who would be 3rd, 4th, 5th cousins. Now understand, I am using the DNA testing primarily for ancestral research to find families that we share mutual ancestors with. But my family, several branches of my family, have been in this country for so long, in some cases before the Revolutionary War. So my family is enormous, and it is impossible for me to know, you know, of course, all the folks that are even in my family today. I mean, we're talking about a lot of family members. In one particular branch, there are almost 3,000 descendants who are alive today from one branch of a family where there may have been almost 20 children. And so it's just impossible to know that. However, on some genealogy websites, they do allow you to find out who your shared matches are. So that means that people that the person who's making the request and I have in common. So what that would allow me to do is to narrow down the branch of the family that we are most likely related to. And believe it or not, it's been very good. It's been very clear, very specific, that I can usually tell if they're from a Gerald side of the family or the Campbell side of the family, the DeWitt or the Rames or Vereen. It's very interesting, but I usually can tell them, at least put them on the right path in terms of what ancestors or ancestral line we have in common, and most likely a parent was descended from the same lines of the family. Now, again, this is important because there are people who are just finding out in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s that they're adopted. Now, do understand that adoptions, back in the day were different than they are now. There was no such thing as an open adoption, and parents were actually told to shield this information from their children because they thought that at that time, doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists, that it would be in the best interest of the child. Now, one thing I have always heard as I'm talking with people about their particular circumstances and how they found out about their situations is that they've always had an unction, in most cases, that something was a little bit off, something was a little bit different. Now, I have heard, but very rarely, that they had no idea. But in some cases, some things seem to be off, and they've always had an unction about what is different or why are we different for whatever reason. Now, what I want to say, and I'm going to say it several times in this video, that things happen for so many reasons. And so life is messy. DNA is very messy, and so sometimes on this journey you may find out some things that are very, very difficult. So I suggest that if you're going to use DNA to find out the answers to these kinds of questions, that by all means get the support you need. I don't mean just someone who can help you understand the DNA test, but I mean get some help in terms of counseling, because you may find out some things that are very difficult in terms of your parentage that were being hidden from you. And then even finding out the information, it can go several ways. So in some instances, I have seen people who've reached out to family members who just don't want to be involved. They don't want to be in relationship with them. So that can seem like another slap in the face after you have just discovered who your family is, that they may not want to be involved with you. And again, that could be based upon, how you come into existence is not your fault, nor is it anything that you should be ashamed of. But you do have a right to know that still, but you're going to need some support to sort of work through that. The other thing is, or the other side of that is, I have seen people or know people who have discovered family, the truth about who they are, who a father is usually, and the family has been looking for them, or that father has been looking for them, and they discover that they have this amazing family who has just been waiting to get to know them. And so again, that's not every situation, but it can fall either way. Even in those situations, it's a good thing to get the support that you need, because there are going to be lots more questions. But it's not to say that those questions are not worth answering. And the last question sort of piggybacks on this one, and that is, should I take the DNA test at all? And I think sometimes as our children, as we honor our parents, we don't want to seem disrespectful. But if you're old enough to order that kit online and you really want to know this information, whether a parent is at this point willing to share the information or not, you have a right to know. And again, in my mind, it is also, although it's not in the Constitution, it is an inalienable right. And that basically means that you have a God-given right to know who you are, who your mother is, who your father is, regardless of the circumstances. Again, I'm going to say, if you're going to go down this journey, definitely, please get the support that you need. And again, finding out who you are is not an excuse or a reason to be confrontational, but it is possibly going to help you understand yourself and your life a little better, especially, if you are different in many ways. But wouldn't it be amazing to find out that you have aunties and uncles who are just wanting to get to know you, that you may look like, or even to meet a parent, if the parent has not passed away, who just never knew about you and wanted to have you in their family. But again, remember that it's not always as sweet. It can be very messy, and you are going to need some kind of support however it pans out. But to answer the number one question, should you take the DNA test if you're interested in finding out who your parent is or your parents are? Absolutely yes, and you can believe the results of the test. That's all I've got for you today. Those are the top 3 questions that were asked of me regarding DNA test. Thank you so much for stopping by the channel. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And again, I'm Pamela Bailey with the Antebellum Diaspora Project, where we're finding our families that were separated by slavery in the Antebellum South. Now, if you have other questions for me, by all means, you can go to my Instagram page. I am the Pamela Bailey, and you can submit your questions. And if it's something that I can make a video about, I'll be happy to do so. So thank you again for tuning in. Like the video if you like it and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.